Well, good morning. This is Gary Sly and the Legacy of Handmade Objects, and I'm here with my old buddy Sally Criswell up in Gainesville, Florida. Sally is one of those folks who's been a mentor to me over the years. I started out working in her shop up in Trenton, Florida. She taught me how to do a lot of framing, and probably as important, taught me that I could figure out how to run a shop if I wanted to. So I want to take some time and chat with Sally a bit today. The first session we're going to do is just a get to know Sally kind of time. And then I want to have a second session, which you'll see later in the series, that'll focus on one of Sally's specialties, which are crazy quilts, which I know you all love. So, Sally, let me just kind of start out by asking you to talk some about how you got into this. I know you had a business, you've had a business close to 40 years now, right?
37.
Okay.
37.
So, I know the story, but tell the story of how you got into having a business and doing stitching.
Well, I opened my first shop in 1984.
Okay.
My husband got sick, and I thought I could go back to work. I had been home for 14 years.
Wow.
Back then I had 6 of my 8 children still living at home.
Sure.
So I was busy pretty much. But my skills, my business degree, and all of that was obsolete now because computers had come in.
Right.
So no one would hire me, and I was devastated. I could not believe no one wanted me.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, okay. So I put a second mortgage on the house, and I opened a shop with my Girl Scout leader friend.
and you learned stitching in Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts, right, when I was young. But it was just one of the things that I did. I loved everything. And I wish at one point that I could settle on one thing, but I never have been able to do that.
I can't either. I get that.
I know. So, so we opened our shop, and we just tootled along, and we had stenciling classes, and we found soon we would switch. So she would run the shop one day, and I would do the framing and making the pillows and that kind of thing. And then the next week, she would do the framing and stitching, and we found out that I was a better salesman than she was.
Right.
So then I worked the front end all the time, and she worked the framing section all the time. But that first year we were in business, we I don't know where we got the nerve, but we thought we could enter this competition that Vanessa Ann Designs was doing, which was a 2-week trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so there were 27 shops around the country that decided they were going to enter. And I just called all my friends, and I said, we're doing the book Plum Alley, and you need to help me decorate our big double glass windows.
Wow.
And then we won.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So your first year in business, you won a trip to Hawaii.
Yes.
And that shop was here in Gainesville?
That was over by Dan's Fan City, yes.
Okay.
Over on Newberry Road.
Right.
From there we moved to up by Service Merchandise and Mr. Hans. And then I moved to Thornbrook. By then Lynn was tired and she was getting married again.
Sure.
So I opened the business in Thornbrook, and that one we ran for 23 years. So, and then I put in framing there. I put in the quilting corner, which I ran for 6 years.
Wow.
I know, it was just
Now,
fun.
What do you miss most about the shop? Because I know you missed the shop.
I hate being retired. I love the people.
Yeah.
That was the best part. And we had all kinds of teachers come in. We had Darlene Osteen came down 3 times, and she developed a sampler for our shop, the Spanish band sampler.
Right.
I started with another friend touring needlework tours, which we did.
You travel a lot.
I did. We did 13 trips to Germany and Italy and England, Belgium, France.
Sure.
All over.
Sure.
Wherever there were needlework shops, Ireland, we just took a group of ladies and went and studied samplers and needlework and lace, whatever. And it was just, it was fun.
Now, when I met you, you had a shop up in Trenton, which was the last really brick and mortar shop that you had.
They sold my building, and then Stephanie Metz and Paul Metz owned the Swanee Valley Quilt Shop out there in Trenton.
Right.
And they said, come out. So
sure.
I put a shop in, a small shop, inside their quilt shop. And then they bought another building, and on, I think, the trip to England, they packed me up and moved me down to what the ice house was.
Sure.
And I was there for 3 years, which was just a half a block away. So it was a compound out there. And then on a trip to Italy about 3 years later, they moved me down to, they bought another building, the museum. So so every time I left, they moved me somewhere.
Well, it seemed like you were moving up in the world, though.
The good thing was they cleaned and dusted everything as they moved me.
Ooh, I could use that now.
I know. It's just amazing. But you meet so many people, and, you know, it's kind of like when you discover Pinterest and you think, oh, I'm going to share and I'm going to do this. And there are a million zillion people smarter than I am out there. And I thought, okay. So, but
well, you're smart enough to know to learn from other people, though, and keep that exchange going.
I have. I try and go. The gals in Bermuda talked me into doing a rug hooking class in Nova Scotia one summer, and I did that, and I discovered, well, I'm not that woman thing. And then Marianne Jones, who is head of the lace making guild in Florida, taught me into going to Jacksonville to a bobbin lace. And then at the end of that, I had about a thumbnail's worth of lace.
Sure.
And I thought, well, I just like her tools and her cushion.
I love Marianne. I miss her even now.
Yep.
Somebody gave me some bobbin lace materials a couple months ago, and I thought, boy, I wish Marion could show me how to do this again.
Oh, yeah. We have Renette in our little group who still does bobbin lace.
Yeah.
From South Africa. And she just is Brazilian embroidery.
I'm going to get back into it. My son bought me some stuff from Belgium.
Oh.
Some books and things like that. That's going to be one of mine. I can't learn everything, but now when I started with you at Trenton, you got to where you didn't like framing quite so much.
Well, you walked in the door. I couldn't believe you wanted to drive up and you wanted to learn how to frame, and you said no one would hire you on, and you said you would work free, and that was the key point. It's like, okay, so but you came faithfully almost 3-4 years every Saturday.
Well, yeah,
you learned to cut mats, and you learned to cut the glass, and you learned how to assemble it, and you learned how to stretch it and clean it. And
that was one of my jobs during that period, because I had retired. Other than being a wizard in Harry Potter world, that's what I was doing during that time.
I know, but see, that was fabulous because there wasn't anything that you weren't afraid to tackle. You know?
Well, and you gave me some confidence. I started a shop largely because I saw how you ran yours, and I figured I could probably figure out how to do that.
You have to just love everybody who walks in the door.
Sure.
Everybody comes in there looking, and it's like they all have, I don't know, things they love, and you soon learn their name and what they love, and
right.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
Now, one of the things I know you're very proud of is you got a chance to do some restoration work on a wedding dress. Tell me a little bit. Remind me again of that story.
This was the Bermuda Guild had the Vermont House, which was the National Trust House in Bermuda.
Right.
And so they asked me if I could do it, and it was Irish crochet lace top, and the bottom was reticella needle lace.
Right.
So it was a mother and her grandmother who had made this dress, but it was full of holes and coming apart. So it took me almost 2 years to do that dress, but I got to take it with me out of the country, which was 25 pages of customs forms to get it out of the country.
Sure.
But then they awarded me a lifetime membership in the National Trust of Europe for doing that.
That's wonderful.
I know. And then I did some restoration for the Leitner Museum over in St. Augustine, 2 of their 17th century silk samplers, which was kind of fun. And then I did appraisals for the Whitman samplers, the traveling samplers, those. I did 4 of those samplers, but I could only have 1 at a time in my house because they were $40,000.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough
exactly.
insurance in my house to cover them in case the house burned down.
Now let me circle back. You mentioned reticella.
Yes.
I was just reading about that. That's similar to bobbin lace?
It's like punta in aria. It's lace made. It's dimensional,
Okay.
and it's all done with needles and lace. This had a lot of cotton fibers underneath of it, which we had to one by one restore, you know.
So there was a ground cloth and then lace over it, or was it just...
No, it was just the lace on the
Okay.
bottom.
Very cool.
I know, I have a good picture of it in there.
And you've still done some teaching in where you've been going, Bermuda or Bahamas?
I go to Bahamas the last 3 years in a row.
Okay.
With a quilt group down there at the Leaping Lizards Resort, which is owned by the Metz, Stephanie and Paul Metz.
Right.
And so they have a retreat every year, which I go and teach at. So it's like a week of free vacation.
Now, you talked a lot about traveling. What's your,
Yes.
as you think back, what was your favorite trip, stitching related trip? Or maybe
I
there's not
loved
just one.
Italy
Yeah.
because we went to Palestrina and we worked on a model which had the Palestrina knot in it when we were in Palestrina. Then we went up to Assisi, and so we did some Assisi work there.
I've been there.
I
That's
know.
wonderful. Yes.
So, and then everywhere we went, I mean, in Germany there was the Cella Museum before it closed, and you got to see the samplers. And we were at the Victoria and Albert Museum when you could actually open the doors and pull the samplers out.
Sure.
You know, and I got to play the docent for Henry VIII, that floor. So my job was to take our group around and talk about Henry VIII and the needlework in that era.
Now, my viewers will know that I've been stuck in that Henry VIII era recently.
I love it.
I did black work with Catherine of
Yes.
Aragon a while back, and the Holbein stitch,
Yes.
you know, is based on Henry VIII's court painter,
Yes.
Hans Holbein the Younger.
Yes.
So I've been all in that Renaissance stuff lately. Now, if you missed that, you need to go back to some past episodes
They do
and learn a little more about it.
They do Margot Pope in St. Augustine does the reenactments over there, and her stitch is black work.
Yeah.
I mean, she just, during their group, I guess it's a weekend, maybe once a year they have, and she dresses up in costume and does wonderful things.
I want to go over and see Margot. She's another one of the folks that's kind of influenced me, and I want to go over and talk to her one day.
Talk to her about her husband and the sailboat he helped build.
Oh yeah. Well, she's a journalist. She's
She
got all
was.
kinds of kudos to go along with it.
Yes. She's been around a long time and knows a lot of people, a lot of history.
Now, Germany, Schwamm whitework.
Mm-hmm. We did
what's
that 3 years. Well, that's just another form of needle lace, white on white. There's a museum there. Books on it. I can't remember the lady's name right now, but I'll pull it out before.
Is that something you've actually worked with a lot?
Yeah, we went 2 years to that museum, and the teacher that owns the museum taught classes.
Okay.
So
cool.
That was wonderful. There hasn't been any kind of technique. Even in Ireland, every little city we went to had a lace named after it. You know, so it was, as we traveled around, there's a lot to absorb in the world.
There was another YouTube series where they talk about where the different stitching fabric gets its name.
Yes.
And every count has a different name, but it's because of where in the world it started and all that kind of cool stuff, like Hardanger and so forth.
I love Hardanger. I just taught a class in Hardanger at our little Wednesday group of stitchers. And this next month I'm teaching silk ribbon embroidery for them.
Now, I think at heart you're a teacher.
Well, I like to teach. I don't want to die and not tell everybody everything I know.
Sure.
So,
sure.
and it's like, okay, but then it's just kind of, it's like, okay.
Well, if you're a teacher, that means you also want to learn. Because
Well,
I mean, if you're a teacher who never learns anything,
I am
then you're
always
not much
taking
of a teacher.
classes. I have a friend, Betsy, and Betsy and I would go to Wisconsin. We've been twice.
Oh, you're
So-
the two troubadours when you're on the road. That's for sure.
Last year, 2 years ago, we took the Master Stitchology class with Sue Spargo, and we drove to Wisconsin. And then the year before that, we drove to Wisconsin to Primitive Gatherings. And wherever there's a class, I kind of want to go and take.
You're different than me. I'm not a really good student.
Well,
I'm a bossy type, and I don't mind teaching, but I'm not a very good student. I like to figure it out on my own. I guess is the difference. And when I go to a class, I always feel like I have to do better than
Pay attention.
everybody. Well, no, I'm always trying to stay ahead, and I can't just relax and take my time and do
Sometimes
it
I
that
have
way.
students who just want to listen to what you're saying, and then they'll go home and sit in their favorite chair under their magnifying light, and they'll do it.
That's probably what I'm more like that. But a lot of teachers are offended if you do that. So.
Well, I just went with Stephanie Murphy and Betsy down to a snowman class, and I had just had cataract surgery, so I couldn't see, so I just piddled along and listened, and they didn't seem to mind, as everybody's doing their thing, but I listened and
good.
paid attention.
Good. And you're still very active with groups.
I am. I have
always
a
teaching
Tuesday
and
group,
doing
a Wednesday
retreats.
group, a Thursday group, and a Friday group.
And you got a couple retreats coming up.
I do.
You can say a word or two about those if you want.
Well,
I don't remember the dates. But.
The one in January is a Crazy Quilt, the Crazy Quilt Divas on Facebook.
Right.
I asked if they wanted to have a retreat. So we're going to the end of January of 2025. We're going to Middleburg, Florida, which is Camp Blanding.
Right.
And so it's a 3-day retreat, which is $295, but it includes 2 projects, all your food, and 3 nights lodging. So, but the divas are already booking their airplane tickets and coming in.
Yeah.
And so we have quite a few. We've got a choice of 4 projects, and they get 2 included, but everybody's kind of signing up. I have a friend, Norma, who's going to do fabric painting.
Oh,
And
wow.
then another friend, Nancy, who's going to be crazy quilting on a needle roll-up, which I'll show you.
Her stitching is superb.
Superb.
too.
Well,
Yeah.
she's another one that goes the extra mile. It's like, if this is great, then this is better.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem to mind spending 40 hours on one little project.
No, and
the buttonhole.
she has the creativity to put her vision into stitches.
Yes.
I have some of her stuff in my shop, and when she brought in those little pairs that she does,
Yes.
I laughed because I could attempt to make something that looked like a pear, but it wouldn't look like a pear.
Oh.
But when Nancy attempts something, it looks like a pear.
Right.
And that just amazes me.
Well, she's creating for both of our retreats. We have one coming up in September, but it's full. And then we have the one in January.
Well, people have to follow you on Facebook and see what's
Right.
coming up in the future if they want to do that. Well, this is a great little introduction to Sally Criswell and the stitching life that she's led. We're going to end this session because I want to put some pictures at the beginning and
Okay.
all that sort of stuff. And then stay tuned because we're going to have another episode where we talk about crazy quilts. So for this session, this is Gary Sly with my friend Sally Criswell. This is the Legacy of Handmade Objects. Have a great day.